Hello, I'm Henry, and I read a book. I read this book, Flanimals by Ricky Gervais and illustrated by Rob Steen, and I would like to talk about it, please. Ricky Gervais is a very important person in modern pop culture. Cringe comedy, podcasts, vocal atheism, very dark humour, actually good award show hosting. Carl Pilkington. He didn't invent any of these things by any means, and I wouldn't really even call him a pioneer in them, but he was definitely a huge part of bringing them to the mainstream. He is one of the reasons why your average Joe knows what they are. But because he's had such an impact on modern pop culture, something about him is often overlooked. He is a really weird guy, a real odd duck of a bloke. If you watch him or listen to him long enough, you'll notice he's looking for any excuse to bust out a particular face and voice. I'm not going to do it here, but it's sort of like cross-eyed with an underbite, and he speaks in a sort of wet, gravelly way. Now, just pulling a funny face and doing a funny voice isn't all that weird, but the frequency and the ease and the opportunistic way he transitions into it is. Like, I am willing to bet that a significant portion of the reason he created Derek was so he could just pull this face for extended periods of time. It's written into extras too. Seriously, he's looking for any excuse to become this guy. He's even engineering and creating situations himself to become this guy. And some of the things he says while he's in this persona are obviously for the purpose of making the people who are watching and the people who he's with uncomfortable. It doesn't make it any less weird. I'd say it happens at least once an episode on the Ricky Gervais show, and if that doesn't convince you, watch Learn English with Ricky Gervais, the video on YouTube. The whole comedic climax of that brilliant video is based on this persona. He is weird, and the moment you realise that, it makes this book, its existence, its content, less so. If you only knew Ricky Gervais from The Office or Afterlife or something, and you picked this up, you'd be like, what the hell is this now? But knowing he is a weird one makes the weirdness in this book easier to understand. It's still weird. It's up there with Dan Aykroyd's Skull Vodka and whatever madness Terrence Howard's into at the moment as one of the weirdest celebrity side projects. But at least it's on brand. I think I've established that. Right? I've called this book weird a whole bunch, but what are we actually dealing with here? What is Flanimals? Flanimals is essentially a handbook of fictional creatures, similar to the speculative biology and zoology art projects you might see covered on the Curious Archive YouTube channel. Each Flanimal gets their own name, scientific name, and a short description. Now, for someone like Ricky Gervais to make something like this is weird. He's not really someone you'd expect to delve into speculative biology and create a whole bunch of fake animals. With the exception of The Invention of Lying, great premise, terrible execution, Ricky Gervais doesn't really delve into the fantastical. All his stuff is sort of down to earth and set in the real world, with real people doing real things. This certainly isn't that. And I'm not saying creatives can't mix things up, I'm just saying it's a bit of a shock when they do so violently. Going from an Office or an Extras to a Flanimals is pretty jarring. But then what makes this book less weird is that it is a comedy book. This is not a serious project delving into the implications of these fake animals and how they function in their environments. If you are familiar with the Curious Archive YouTube channel, this is something they might cover on like an April Fool's Day video. There is no realistic and thought through naturalism here. This is all for fun. See what I mean about this making it less weird? Comedian makes funny book. That makes sense. And then there's how that humour is conveyed, its medium of delivery. And things become slightly less weird again, because this book is full of nonsense gobbledygook. An example, I'm going to read you one of the Flanimals entries. The plumboid Doppler. Scrotus bogulum. This lumpy squint sac is both wormily turgid, yet simply flemble at the same time. Apart from that, it is totally normal. I mean, you should see the wiggly red lines on the Word document I have for this script. It's very Rick and Morty as well, isn't it? Watch the how plumbuses are made bit, and tell me that isn't basically the same thing as what I just read out for the plumboid Doppler. This book came out in 2004, I should say now. Now, I just said that the delivery of this information makes it less weird. How can that be the case? I was barely speaking English then. How can literal nonsense make things make more sense? Because of what I said in the overview. Ricky Gervais is one weird bloke. For him to create something called the Sprine Bloat Trunker, or the Underblenge, or the Coddle Flop, or the Gum Spudlet makes sense. Still inarguably a weird thing that he's made here though, but the fact that you aren't meant to take this seriously obviously gave me the brilliant idea to take it seriously, because I am an idiot. Let's treat this book of nonsense words and impossible creatures like an episode of Curious Archive. What does the Flanimal world look like? What is its makeup? What are its rules? How do the Flanimals themselves function? What are their day-to-days? How many of them could actually survive? Well, I think we can answer that last question first. And I think we can do it with, drumroll please, a tier list. 3 tiers to answer if a Flanimal could physically or possibly survive. Yes, just like any other animal. Maybe, depending on external and contextual factors. No. How were you even born in the first place? The Coddle Flop. It has a terrible defense mechanism and is said to be instantly squashed if trodden on. But if no one steps on it, it's fine. This one's going in yes. The Plamglottis. This one's going in maybe. It needs to eat its own hands to move and can't eat anything else after it has eaten its own hands. But there's nothing saying it can't regurgitate its hands to eat something else. The Mernimbler and Adult Mernimbler. These two go together because the baby turns into the adult when someone points out how cute it is. And even though the adult is said to eat everything it sees and then die of indigestion, that is basically what all animals do. I'm going to put them in yes. The Grundit. The Cover Athlete, going in yes, bumps its head a lot, but its brain is too small to be affected. The Podloflage, maybe. It's basically a water balloon, nearly 100% water and just as fragile. The Flemping Bunt Himmler, our first no. The whole gimmick of this one is it infiltrates a nest of baby Mernimblers that turn into adult Mernimblers and eat everything in sight. This thing would not survive. The Underblenge, also a no. It cannot move from the rock it is born on. Hilarious, but also impossible. The Blunging is basically a kangaroo. So yes, the Munty Flumple, however, is a no. Falling in love to such an extent that all you do is stare at the thing you're in love with and do not move at all is not a good survival tactic. The Splunge, it dies at birth, causing both parents to die too. I don't know how those parents came into existence, but this is obviously a no. The Honk, yes, makes the loudest noise on the planet once a day, but doesn't seem to be affected by it. The Hemel Sprot, runs about everywhere, but cannot see where it is going. This is a no, because of our next Flanimal, the Sprot Guzzler, a creature that is actively searching out prey that cannot see where it is going, resulting in that creature being a no and this creature being a yes. The Clunge Ambler. Likes to hug things, but because it smells, other Flanimals bury it. It doesn't say anything about them doing anything else to it, anything violent or eating it, just burying it, and it can get out of that, so I'd say this one is a yes. The Woboid Mump, specifically stated as one of the most useless organisms in the universe. Just an eyeball in jelly. A blind eyeball. No. The Sprine Bloat Trunker. No. It spawns from a puddle outside a Flanimal recycling plant and then immediately goes to get itself recycled. The Print. A maybe. A thing that jumps and dives about the place. Stated to usually die from landing on its head. Only usually though. The Gum Spudlet. Yes, classified as another Flanimal's food and that alone, but a lot of animals are another animal's food. The Sprog. Yes, another one that's basically just another Flanimal's food, but it is alive in its own right. The Munge Fuddler. A maybe. It's a bit too antagonistic for its own good and ends up getting battered. The Frappled Hump Dumbler. One of the most nonsense descriptions in the book, but nothing stated that would reduce its survivability. Yes, the Opheldermis, born inside out. Probably the first no based on design alone. The Plumboid Doppler. As we stated earlier in this video, this is all nonsense, but like the Frappled Hump Dumbler, there's nothing stated saying it would struggle to survive. The Blimble Sprint. Its description describes exactly why this is a no. Sprinting around, never reaching its destination, and then dying of exhaustion. The Glonk. Does absolutely nothing, then dies. No's don't get more clear cut than that. And that's all the Flanimals. Let's total them up. 11 yeses, 4 maybes, and 10 no's. There you go. Despite this being a nonsense comedy book not to be taken seriously at all, when you do take it seriously, more of these nonsense animals make sense than those that don't. Some decent speculative biology on the part of Ricky Gervais here. As far as the world of Flanimals go, things are a bit more sparse. We only get 2 things that sort of flesh it out. In the Hemel Sprot description, we get mention of the Guddle Deserts, showing that there are at least some distinct biomes that these creatures live in. The world could be all all deserts, or it could be temperate and desert. We have no real way of knowing. Though with a significant portion of these Flanimals being goo-based life forms and have primarily liquid bodies, I'm leaning towards the latter, with the gooier ones staying away from the more arid regions. The other piece of the world we get is the Sprog and Hemmelsprott recycling plant. This throws up a million questions. Who built it? When did they build it? Why did they build it? I don't think any of the Flanimals listed are capable of building something like this, either because they're like too stupid, or they don't have arms, or have some kind of other cursed existence. So that implies another form of intelligent species on the Flanimals planet. Humans, perhaps? Could the world of the Flanimals possibly be some kind of post-apocalyptic dystopian future Earth? Questions I fear we won't find answers to in this book. Hint. Hint. Now to give my quick thoughts on this book. I normally do this at the top of the video, but I think it fits better down here. I think this is great. It's a wonderful little bit of nonsense fun, with some really creative and striking creature designs. It's hilarious but also dark, with this sort of sugary kids TV show veneer making it feel even darker. And it's the perfect size too. It's light and brisk, it is not self-indulgent, and it does not overstay its welcome. Plus, I'm a sucker for handbooks and field guides and encyclopedias and spotters manuals, and this scratches that itch and then some. All each Flanimal needs is some stats like a top trumps card, and whatever flavour of autism I have would be satiated perfectly. So yeah, brilliantly fun little book. Ricky Gervais certainly made this book. It holds up under pointless internet scrutiny even more than he would probably expect, but it has his weird fingerprints all over it. And I'm glad he made it. I'm glad he pivoted so wildly into something so different to what he normally does. And I think there's a good message there too, about doing things you're not used to doing. Whatever it is, put your own stamp on it. Do it your way. Make it yours. As I not so subtly hinted at a few seconds ago, I do have 3 other Flanimals books, and we'll be looking at those in the coming weeks. And I think we're going to do something similar with them too, taking their obviously silly and nonsense world building far too seriously, and seeing if their creatures and biomes can withstand the power of someone with too much free time on their hands. Hello. Thanks a lot for getting to the end of the video. Like and subscribe. I hope you enjoyed the first of these Flanimal videos. These will be the things that are taking the place of the Scott Pilgrim ones as the videos in between proper books and the movie ones. There's 3 more, and that will see us through for a good long while, which is probably a positive because I don't know what will eventually be taking the place of these. We'll see if something comes up. Anyway, yeah, like and subscribe. See ya.